Great. So just to give a quick introduction, my name's Guy Earnshaw. I'm the Senior Solutions Consultant at BlueHub, and today I'm really excited to be joined by Danny Ying, the founder of Cin7. And today we're going to take a dive into the topic of connected inventory for accountants and really looking at how product-based businesses are using apps like Cin7 alongside Xero to replace old staples of the software world, especially in the UK, things like Sage 200 or all the Sage products are now really far behind the times in the level of functionality and efficiencies they provide your clients. And now there's more incentives other than just making tax digital to move your clients over to these apps. And as many of you will be aware, our webinars at BlueHub are largely focused on accountants, but even in the sign-ups for this webinar, we had an increased amount of end users, so businesses that have joined us today that are looking to learn about this topic. And that's something we've seen a lot of over the last 3 months with everything going on in the world, is that businesses are now choosing this time to make the move over. So I'm going to shortly hand over to Danny to give himself a bit of a personal intro, and then also just to dive into the topic of connected inventory for accountants. So Danny, thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll hand over to you to give us a bit of an overview here.
Hey, thanks, Guy. Yeah, I'm super excited to be here for 2 reasons. I guess one is, it's the first webinar we've done with BlueHub, and I've known Guy and BlueHub for seems like forever. Yeah, definitely. There's 2 topics I'd like to cover. One is what the market is telling us. We're in a good sort of great position being an inventory system. We actually see a lot of what goes on in terms of merchandising and what industries are up, what industries are down. And we're also across a lot of regions as well. So I'm keen to give you guys some data in terms of what we've pulled out and what we see as happening in the markets. And then, yeah, well, then I'll just shift to, how Cin7 and Xero work together, to provide sort of a robust solution in this COVID era so you guys can, rebound. And then I'll pass it on to Guy to talk about, some of his unique services that he provides, and he's going to run through a case study as well. So yeah, let's look at some data. The first one is sometimes it looks, there's a lot in data, and for us, I'm covering April and May. Those are the 2 months that for us sort of had the biggest impact. COVID had the biggest impact on our customers. So in April, obviously for those that are in the media, it comes as no surprise that the retail sort of bricks and mortar sector just tanked by, 3/4 or minus 75%. And then when April came along, it did sort of pop up a little bit, but obviously retail is still down. Amazon, we chuck in there for us, for our customers, there's not been much of a change. I think that's a good thing. Other things that we saw was retail, wholesale was definitely down during April. Obviously a lot of big box retailers are just not buying. And then when May came along, there was a few more wholesale activity going on as well. But I guess the big thing to point out here was April and May. April, e-commerce shot up, and also in May as well, it shot up even more. I guess some of the reasons why is because e-commerce was always such a small percentage compared to actual retail, that it only takes retail to drop a small percentage for e-commerce to shoot up. So I guess for us, we can sort of surmise that e-commerce will carry on growing, and unfortunately, bricks and mortar retail will still carry on declining. In terms of regions, there's, I guess, the regions to the right, like the rest of the world, Asia and Europe, we don't have as much of a view over, but, Canada, United States, Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom, we have a bigger presence. There is a lot in this data, but what happened overall is about in April, there's a 9% drop across all regions. And what you saw in New Zealand was a massive drop in April, just because New Zealand probably had the most restrictive lockdown rules during April. And then what we saw in May is when the lockdown restrictions were reduced. New Zealand, for the most part, and many other countries, it increased by 11% in terms of the overall merchandise value So in April, things dropped by 9%. In May, things increased by 11%. I think it's just because there's some pent-up demand during the lockdown. So I guess what we can say here is, although there could be second waves coming, we believe if the lockdowns are not super stringent, for the most part, the economies like Canada, United States, Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom, normally operate at a capacity of 90%, plus or minus 10% of what normally happens. So although COVID, there's a lot of uncertain times, we do believe that for the most part, the economy just keeps on trucking. Probably the industries is a thing that, although, the economy does keep on trucking, some industries are definitely more impacted than others. The red bar, which is April, it sort of comes as no surprise. Big ticket items like automotive, marine, some big electronic appliances, furniture, apparel, pretty much dropped very sharply. And then in May, they went back up to closer to normal levels. Obviously, all people buying cars, although not new cars, probably secondhand cars. But electronics, and then apparel just saw a big spike in purchasing, pretty much after the extreme lockdown periods. So I think, I think most industries should get back up to normal, if not fully up, close to normal. What we can say is there are some industries that are going to remain up, sporting equipment, health and beauty, food and beverage. Some industrial products and some general merchandise products will remain up as people buy things so they can, work from home. So I guess what we're sort of saying here is, for the most part, industries should go back to mostly normal. Obviously, you already know there are some industries like tourism and sporting events that may not get back. But in terms of merchandising products, a lot of the industries are coming back to normal. And I guess the big thing is just spread yourself across more industries, because you never really know which ones are going to get hit. So if you can keep your competitive advantage and spread yourself across, a number of industries, that would also work for you in case one industry gets hit more than the other. Right, so those are just some highlights we want to show you about the trends that we're seeing. So long story short is I think e-commerce is going up, and obviously being in the cloud is super important as well. So so things are looking good if you're a company that's in multiple regions, across multiple industries and across multiple channels. So that leads us into Cin7. So how does Cin7 and Xero work together to give you like a combination going forward? And the first thing I want to cover, and I'll cover in these separately as well, is just navigating Xero's transaction limits. It just comes up as the biggest full stop for many companies, and they think, oh, Xero's small, there's no way they can handle a business like mine. So we have companies that have 50 million pounds revenue using Xero and Cin7. We run into the sort of more mundane accounting tasks, like topics like cost, landed costs, and COGS. We talk a little bit about our Xero Dashboard, Cin7's approach to how we integrate with Xero. There's some key accounting items that I want to cover, and this is just a few of the big ones. We cover a lot of accounting sort of just workflows and things, and I just want to discuss a few to highlight them. Talk about why Cin7 is unique, what makes us special. And then I'll give you a little sneak preview in terms of what we're looking into the future. All right, navigating Xero's transaction limits. So as I said before, we have a lot of relatively, big companies that turn over, lots of money using Cin7 and Xero. And the thing I'd like to highlight, although people talk a lot about transaction limits, the thing that really slows Xero down is journal entries. So the transaction limits is, they say a few thousand, but for the most part, it's the journal entries that slow it down. And that's when, if you're hammering Xero and you get to GST or VAT time, it slows down amazingly. So for what we do is we try and batch as much as possible to minimize the amount of journal entries that go to Xero. So for the most part, we just batch everything. We provide the accounts person or the accountant only what they need to sort of do their job, and anything else we store in Cin7. So for example, if you're doing retail or e-commerce, we batch everything on a daily basis by payment method. So you could have thousands of orders and we could just batch them into 2 to 3 invoices daily. So, retail and e-commerce, you shouldn't really hit any limits, because it doesn't matter how many transactions you produce, we'll just batch them into payment batches. And usually with our customers, there's about 2 to 3 different payments. And our job is to make sure the batches of payments matches the money coming into your bank, so they're much easier to reconcile. Getting into COGS. Now, COGS is the one thing we, as an inventory system, obviously it's core to what we do, and we had to think super hard about how we sort of handled COGS. And for the most part, we wanted to be as live as possible. So you have a live profit and loss every month. I mean, whenever you need it. So what we do is we actually batch COGS into 2 to 3 entries per month, depending in terms of what sort of COGS account you want to go into. And when you click update COGS, it'll be the most up-to-date COGS at that point in time in the month. So what it means is any time during the month, you can have the most up-to-date COGS in Xero. So you'll have a live running feed of how your business is doing. And the other sort of thing that, obviously the thing that you may hit some limits is on account transactions, because we can't batch those. But what we can do at Cin7 is we can actually shrink all the lines that you push through into one line. So normally on account transactions, you could be buying 20, 50 products in one invoice, and we can just squish that down to one line, because I guess, the accounting system doesn't really need to know what products that you brought. They just need to know how much you owe. So yeah, even if you do a lot of on account transactions, you shouldn't hit limits. The only time I've seen limits hit is maybe in food and beverage, where you have a lot of customers that buy off you very frequently. But what I've seen sort of going forward is a lot of customers don't put customers on account anymore. I mean, you have a few key customers that are on account, and for the most part, the rest is on cash. Yeah, so those are the key things we do to minimize the transaction limits, so you can scale and get big without having to worry about, just maxing Xero's limits out. Right, let's get into COGS. I guess this is where I've agonized over the longest time, and I think we've got it pretty good how we deal with COGS. So the first thing is in inventory, weighted average is pretty much how everyone does it. And the thing that my statistics lecturer taught me is average is always going to be wrong. So it doesn't matter what happens. So you got hot tea and you got cold tea. Warm tea isn't what the market wants. They want whatever. Okay, that's a bad example. Let's carry on. So what Cin7 does is we capture each shipment that comes into the system and store it. So we don't average anything. When the stock comes into the system, we lock it in, and that's the price. And what we've also done with landed costs is, when you ship orders, let's say you get a big container and half of them may have already been sold, you want to ship them straight away. And what we have done is we know that the people that process landed costs are not normally the same people who ship orders. It's usually the person in the back end, the accounts person, that gets the customs invoices or the container or shipping invoices, a week after, 2 weeks after. So what we've done is we process the landed costs up to 6 weeks after the stock has been shipped, because that's realistically about the max window we can leave open, and that people usually update it within 2 weeks, but we thought, 6 weeks is about what we can do, so it doesn't go across 2 periods. And yeah, as I mentioned before, what we do is we update it on demand. So if somebody updates the landed costs, we'll click a button and we'll update the P&L with the latest landed COGS. And the thing that we think that makes Cin7 quite special as well is we'll always post the COGS to the month of the invoice. So one of the big issues that many of our customers had, they'll invoice in 1 month and the COGS will go in another month. So what we have done is if an invoice is in July and then you don't process the landed costs till August, we'll actually post the COGS and the landed costs to the month of July. So just to make sure the revenue and the COGS are in the same month, so that's super important. Yeah, so this is just some of the previews in terms of how we handle actual landed and COGS to make sure it's accurate, real time, and the timing. We deal with the timing issues and make sure your COGS are not out of sync with your invoices. The Xero Dashboard is something that we came up with probably a couple of years into Cin7 being developed, and I was training some US customers. I had to wake up wicked early, like 5 a.m. in the morning, train an East Coast customer. And after 6 months of training this customer, they left, and then I go, oh my God, I got to train another person, another 6 months to get it. And after a while, I go, I think we can I can't find smarter customers. I have to make the system simpler. And I guess I found out that we needed one place for that person to go to, and everything they do within Cin7 is one click away from that place. So instead of having a system where I could hunt the Easter eggs, you got to go there to get anything done, we've created a Xero dashboard that everything you need as an accounts person is on this dashboard, and everything is one click away or within the dashboard. So that's what we've done. And with the Xero dashboard's about, I don't know, I think we've had it for about over a year. And that's what we're committed to, that if you're a person in accounts or an accountant, you come to the Xero dashboard and that'll give you everything you need within Cin7 to post to Xero. All right, well, let's talk about some of the sort of accounting items that I think a lot of systems forget about. And I guess we've spent a lot of time in it. The first one I want to cover is deposits. It was super, when I first had a customer that told me, oh, I want to handle my deposits, and it was like a very, very convoluted method that he wanted us to do. And 6 months after talking to him, I go, okay, you're right. We will do your convoluted method because it's actually the correct method. So there are deposits for sales. And obviously you've got a big sales and you want to click 30%. And what we do is we actually create an entry, we push it to Xero, and that will increase your sales. I think it's an asset. No, it's a liability. So they give you a deposit, and that deposit is a liability. And then when you ship the goods, they pay you the full thing. We'll actually reverse that liability, push it into, accounts receivable. Don't quote me on the accounts for this. And then you can post the full invoice and everything reconciles. And then inversely for deposits, we do the same thing. So you can pay 30% deposit to your supplier. We push it to Xero as an asset. And then when you do receive the goods, we push the full invoice to Xero, and we'll reverse that asset and push it into accounts payable. Other things, multi-company, we deal with this a lot. It just pops up for us that companies, they have separate entities that sort of work with each other. One of them's wholesale, one of them is maybe retail, or one's in one country and one's in another country. So what we do is we have automation bots, is what you see here. If one company creates a purchase order, it automatically creates a sales order in another company, in the other sister company. And then what we do is we also synchronize stock visibility and pricing updates from one company to another. And we're going to add some more sort of what I call automation bots that will streamline multi-company accounting. But this just give you an idea that this is definitely an area that we have put a lot of effort into to make sure companies do talk to each other without a lot of manual data entry. And the thing that I'm actually quite super excited about is one of the, I would say, the bigger boulders that I've been tackling for ages is US tax. It was such a mammoth task. And I think I've only just completed it yesterday. We tested it on an American customer, and they're somewhat happy about it, which means it works. So I'm happy about it. And so what that means for you guys is, we've got this e-commerce tax that we need to roll out to everyone else, because obviously e-commerce tax isn't going away. So now that we've sort of, dealt with the US, we can apply some of the same theories to the UK, where obviously you're going to send goods to the US, they want some money and you've got to pay them. So we're going to start taking some of the stuff that we've done for the US and apply it to the UK, because I know, each country is going to start asking for their bit of tax that they believe they deserve. and maybe they do. Right, so there's some key accounting items. There's other things that now that, we've broken the back of accounting, I believe, we definitely want to focus a lot more on auditing and reconciliations and just making Cin7 just a lot easier to use. Currently, it's not that easy. There's some basic stuff we need to do just to make it a lot easier. So that's the focus for me now is, the big boulders are done. What can I do to make it make Cin7 easy to use for our customers? Why Cin7? I won't harp on too long about this, but yeah, I think for us, Cin7 stands for connected inventory. So we just went out to try to integrate into everything. So we got about 500 plus integrations. Our goal is for you to sell to anybody, any company, anywhere in the world. So, whether you want to be a wholesaler, bricks and mortar retailer, or e-commerce or marketplaces, I think we have, 95 or 99 connections that you need to be successful. The other cool thing is, when we started, we wanted to integrate into third-party logistics warehouses. So what it means is we can put your inventory anywhere in the world. Although you might have a warehouse, if you want to grow internationally into other regions, it is a lot easier just to, find a warehouse that suits your type of product, and you can strike up a commercial relationship and we can connect you. So so we got 150 3PLs connections, means that you can sell anywhere in the world. And we have a manufacturing module, so you can manufacture, or you can actually contract manufacture as well. So we have the two things you need to make sure that you keep on supplying your markets. Some of the future stuff, I'll just cover it because I worked so hard on it, so I've got to tell somebody about it. So the first one is the Smart Buyer for Forecasting report. So it's like, surely, it was done so long, we must better help our customers find out what product they should buy when. So, I mean, this looks quite complicated. I'm just going to plow through it because you won't get all of it. I'm just going to show you the cool things that were plugged in that we've learned over time. So in terms of forecasting, we want to create a report. We want to give you all the data you need to make a purchasing decision, right? And we have a lot of that data in our system. So some of the stuff is you could have mins and maxes and forecasts. So if you do a min and max, we'll do that first, and then we'll run through our forecasting logic. And we can give you a forecast period. So if you want to forecast for Christmas, you just put in week 50 to week 1, which is the new year, and we can forecast that period for you. Some things we agonize over short. Let's say if you sold out of something, it looks like you haven't sold much, but we can detect that you ran out of stock in your second week. And so do you want to add another week of stock in to just, counter for the stock outs? Or you can add in extra weeks to your forecast, or you can multiply your forecast by a factor. So you think, oh yeah, this Christmas is going to be better, I'm going to multiply everything by 1.2 or 3, or you can say it's not going to be as good, multiply everything by 0.8 or something. Some of the sort of key things that we thought we needed to do is forecast exceptions. So for example, exclude discounts over 50%. Obviously you don't want to buy something if you heavily discount to get rid of it, right? And you probably don't want to rebuy something if the stock you sold was sitting for more than 180 days. So we want to exclude that from the forecast. Or if exclude anything you've sold that was under 20% profit. So we're going to have a number of these. So we just make sure we don't give you amazing sales numbers and these are the products you don't want to buy again. Some of the cooler things we're doing is promotions. Sometimes you have an amazing sales month. That's because it was a promotion. So you can tag products as a promotion last season, and we'll say, look, multiply current promotions by 2. I'm going to promote this new product, multiply that by 2, but I want to multiply old promotions by 0.5. So that's just something for just throwing it out there. People are going to have promotions, and that skews obviously sales numbers. And the coverall, like let's say our forecasting isn't hitting the mark, you can override it with your own budgets. So, we'll try our best to give you a forecast, but if you think, no, okay, this is wrong, I'm just going to key in my own budget for this product, for that supplier, for this period, and we'll give you the ability to do that. All right, so we're working on this now, hopefully in another quarter or 2 quarters probably, can show it to you. And then one click of a button, it creates the purchase order. That's what we wanted to do. We didn't want to give you amazing data and for you to do the work. We wanted you to give you that data, and one click, it creates a purchase order. All right, this is my last slide. It's probably the sexiest slide I can show you. I'm super excited about it, although it's super hard. So it's going to be the thing that's going to be 2 quarters away. So this is a channel profitability report. And what we have realized, I don't know if it sounds a bit egotistical, but I think Cin7 is going to better provide you profitability than Xero with regards to your channels and products. So what we're going to do is we're going to extract expenses from probably 3 main areas: your carriers, your shipping providers, your marketplaces like Amazon, because Amazon charge you like a wounded bull, and you never know why they're charging you. So we wanted to grab Amazon fees as well. And the other place we're going to grab it from is Xero. So if you got some cost buckets in Xero, we're going to grab it and suck it into Cin7. Why would we do that? Well, it's so we can split up fees like commissions, chargebacks across channels and across products. So what we wanted to tell you is, here are the channels you're selling in, and these are the products that are doing well, and these are the products that are not doing well in this channel. And these are the reasons why, because, you know, COGS are high, storage fees are high, handling fees are high, or shipping fees are too high. So those are the types of insights we want to give our customers. So we've already done a prototype on this, and it's all very doable. So we're just pushing it into our pipe to make sure it gets done sometime in the next couple of quarters. All right, that is me. So what I'll do is I'll pass it on to Guy. As I said, we've been working with Guy and BlueHub for quite some time now, many years. I can't remember so many years, but and Guy's going to talk about obviously his unique services around inventory and accounting, and yeah, he's got a case study for you as well. So Guy, it's all yours.
Danny, thank you so much for that. That was really good, and for everyone else that's joined, I'm sure that was really useful to you guys too. I took a lot from that. Feel free to jump in and ask questions. I'm going to cover a few things like a case study of one of our clients that was a UK business that moved from Sage 200 to Cin7 and Xero. So make sure that any questions you've got in mind, come and ask them. But something that sprung to mind during that was, I was wondering how many people in the audience have actually seen a live demo of Cin7 in action. So I've just got a quick poll that I'm going to launch up on everyone's screen, and then just simply let us know if you've actually joined a live demonstration of Cin7 with a client or by yourself. I'm just really keen to know that. So that should now pop up for everyone. So if you just let us know. Because I think so often we're all doing lots of research, you know, looking into things online, discussing things with clients. Perfect, we've had a good amount of votes coming there, so we'll stop there. I'll just share the results so we can see that's about an 80-20. So a lot of you actually haven't seen Cin7 live in use, and I'm sure from those features already you can see how things like that smart buyer forecasting, having all your channels connected, would really benefit a lot of your clients. So demos are something that we provide for free as part of our service. So feel free to get in touch via our website, and you can apply for a discovery call. Usually that will be with me if it's for an inventory system or a client. And then I can show you around and how this would actually work for one of your clients from end to end, covering purchasing, sales, and so on. But there are really just so many features there. Like, I'm so excited, Danny, about that new smart buyer feature, because I know the smart buyer that's already in Cin7 is one of the biggest hits with clients, where they can already see what they need to order based on minimums. But forecasting has been by far one of the biggest trends we've seen in people's requests over the last 3 months. And I think it's because people want to make sure that their money isn't tied up somewhere where it can't sell well. So being able to filter on those margins and stock days, and that's just going to be so beneficial to businesses. I'm really excited about it. So to just quickly touch on BlueHub, as many of you will be aware, we're software consultants and developers, and we specialize in cloud accounting and inventory systems. And we implement a few different systems, but our most commonly implemented system stack is Xero and Cin7. And the main reason why that is that Cin7 is one of the most feature-rich systems, and also its connection with Xero provides us a lot of benefits that help us tackle some of the limitations of Xero. So our role is to help businesses understand how they would need to use Cin7 in order to make it work for their business and then set it up. So what I wanted to do quickly is just take a deeper dive into some of those limitations around Xero that many of you will be aware of. So while Xero is a fantastic accounting system and provides lots of benefits around bookkeeping efficiencies, reporting, and it does provide some level of inventory, it's really at a very, very basic level compared to a lot of the other features. So actually most of our clients, when they first come and speak to us, aren't particularly huge businesses by the time they've outgrown Xero. Many of them are under a million turnover, and they're just starting to hit some of these key limits that Cin7 allows us to overcome quite easily. So some of the main ones that stand out there is obviously a 4,000 limit on how many products you can add. They're simple products, and what we mean by that is within Cin7 we can sell clothing items like jumpers. They can be sold in different colors and different size variants, and they can all be connected together so that we can report on sales of jumpers, sales of blue jumpers, sales of extra small jumpers versus large. So it doesn't just help us organize and search our products more, but improves that reporting element too. This also stands for anything that doesn't require, say, a bill of materials, a recipe to make, or a kit of products, which again, we can't manage in Xero. Xero only gives you as well a single price tier. So if you think for a lot of wholesalers, distributors, manufacturers, especially those moving from Sage, where we can have a customer specific price list, in Xero, it's one price per product for everyone. Whereas in Cin7, we can set up price tiers, assign people to those price tiers. We can even set up people with their own custom prices and quantity-based discounts, time-based discounts in case you want to run a promotion. And there's just a lot more that you can provide. These next three here, no 3PL, no EDI, no warehouse management, that's really key as more and more businesses, when they're growing, are deciding rather than investing money in their own warehouse infrastructure, they'd rather spend that capital on maybe marketing, growing out their e-commerce website, and instead will use a third-party logistics company to warehouse their products. So when we're talking about connected inventory, it's often easy for us to think about Cin7 connecting to Amazon and connecting to Xero, but it's the fact that it's also connecting via EDI to all of their retail partners, all the big supermarkets, that's pulling in orders, sending those through to their different warehouses around the world. So one of our clients has around just under 40 different integrations in Cin7 from different Amazon marketplaces, e-commerce sites around the world into a different network of warehouses all over the world. And this allows us to automate all of those orders so they get to the right destination at the right point to be sent out to that customer. A few other key ones just to quickly touch on again. I think average cost and method, that thing that you mentioned there, Danny, about average is always wrong, the cold and warm tea. I thought that was so spot on. And you can imagine the more diverse your business gets, whether that's you're selling more products or selling over more channels, the more important it is to actually track what the cost of those goods were, because then there are other costs that come in through selling those products, be those fees, service charges, delivery costs. So really having an average cost of your goods gives you such a poor base to then build off all the other costs to then come up with any kind of profitability reports. And then finally, this is probably the most common one that everyone's aware of, is there are some soft limits around how many invoices, so actual transactions you can have in Xero. And this is where that invoice batching that Danny mentioned comes in so valuable. So if you imagine an e-commerce company selling small widgets like this dog toy or something like that, they're going to be processing hundreds of orders a day. So they're soon going to surpass these limits, not be able to run their VAT reports, have all kinds of difficulties, whereas in Cin7 we can just boil that down to a single transaction per payment type per channel that will neatly match then the payment dump that's coming to bank, so that we can then take advantage of one of the features Xero does really well, like the reconciliation, by having fewer invoices to match up. So this is why we always talk about a system stack, because Cin7 alone won't do the bank reconciliation. That requires something like Xero to do that. So it's all about finding the stack of systems that work best for that client's needs, and Cin7 gives us that really good base. So this is one of our clients, SelectQuip. There may actually be one or two other guys on the call because I know they were keen to learn more about what's coming on. And I've chosen this because we actually have a video case study on our website. So if you head over to bluehub.co.uk, you can go and see this case study. So there I am with Henry outside of their office, and SelectQuip sell PPE equipment and different equipment to the likes of Network Rail and other companies. And prior to us coming in, they were on Sage 200. And what spurred on the conversation is Sage 200 came and asked them for around 50k to update or upgrade their Sage 200 for no additional features, just a new updated license. And that made them re-review what they were doing generally. And a large part of their processes were based on paper with 30 employees, people writing quotes, picking off paper, and they just had a few users actually on Sage 200, entering those quotes manually, printing out any delivery notes or pick lists. And it made what is actually a very successful business quite disconnected when it came to an admin level and order processing level. So they also had another element of the business, which was custom signage. So we needed to be able to have a bill of materials. We could use the different components as we were building up those signs. So after their accountant introduced them to us, we went on site and understood what they were looking to do, their frustrations with Sage 200, things they liked. And obviously some of those things were things like the customer price lists, being able to have a really large product catalog because they sell to lots of different companies, different product amounts. So then what we did is we took, so I'm just getting a delivery, guys. Welcome to Lockdown Life. So before we started working with them, they're on Sage 200 and using a lot of paper to tie together their sales channels through. So obviously some of the issues they had there was that their stock wasn't able to be that accurate because of the delay that was happening through these order processes. So the salespeople didn't know how much stock was available at the point of making the sale. Their salespeople as well would have to fill out paper documents. They'd all follow slightly different processes, and it made their process quite untransparent. And then their delivery times were around over a week at that point due to that. So what we did is we came in, we did a discovery session, which is entirely free. You can book these on the website. That's where we give these live personalized demonstrations of the products, and we showed them Cin7 alongside Xero, and they were floored really at the level of software they could get relative to the price, and they didn't really have that in their level of expectations. So we took them through some data checks to understand how they would need to migrate from Sage 200 to Cin7 and Xero. And then we did a proof of concept where we showed them exactly what their new process would look like and then started to generate a project plan. We then helped them set it up, test it, and provide support. But then we came back to do some custom web integrations because they'd started using some of the B2B e-commerce features, which again is a really big feature in Cin7, whereby a business can give login access to one of their customers, where they can log into the back of Cin7, see the products they buy from them at the price tiers they've agreed, and enter their orders just like it was an e-commerce website, but with all of their custom pricing agreements. And SelectQuip took this and grew it even further and won some large contracts by being able to provide this as part of their infrastructure with their clients. So afterwards, their system stack looked like this. They had Xero at the bottom of it doing all of their accounts, replacing a large part of what Sage was doing there. And then Cin7 came in and really expanded that stock management and order processing that Sage 200 was barely really providing. We brought in things like bill of materials, which allowed them to do the signage and that B2B ordering, as we mentioned before. One of the main benefits that they saw as well was that their delivery time notably dropped because the warehouse now had direct access to the system, whereas before they were waiting for pick lists to be printed off from quotes that were dropped off by the sales guys. So now with the quote being entered directly onto the system, they were able to pick it up within seconds of that being entered, so that if the stock was there and they were able to do the delivery, they could send it straight out to the client. And it's really these efficiencies both from sales integrations down to your warehouse. That is the reason why so many of the businesses, when we show them these live demos, are just floored at what they can actually get. So our discovery sessions, this is how we engage with a lot of accountants. They'll come to us usually with 1 or 2 clients in mind. And because the nature of this being very specific, we're looking at product-based businesses, ideally wholesalers, distributors, light manufacturers, e-commerce companies. The expectation of us, and probably Cin7 too, isn't that we can come in and help 50% of your clients, because probably 50% of your clients don't fit that brief. But there's probably 25 to 50 of your clients that can really, really benefit from this type of software that are currently either struggling through on spreadsheets, Google Sheets, or on old systems like Sage 200, or maybe even older than that. Quick story, we actually moved a business last year, 2 businesses owned by 2 brothers, from Microsoft DOS systems onto Cin7 and Xero. So it was a black screen, white text, and we had guys working on the job who were actually younger than the systems that these businesses were working on. And they were still able to migrate over to Cin7 and Xero and see a lot of these same benefits that we're talking about: live visibility over stock and costings, ease of integration with different channels so orders fly through. So if you want to take advantage of one of our discovery sessions, it's really simple. Just head over to our website. There's a big button in the top that says apply for a call. You fill out a few questions so we can understand who's best to help you, and then we'll join you on a call to understand what you want to see in a demo. During that, we'll assess any requirements, look at what apps would be suitable, and then we give you an overview of any costings and things like that too. So I'm just going to jump over now back into Zoom to see if there's any questions. So if you have a question in mind and you haven't entered it already, please jump in. Great, there's a couple coming through. So yeah, can we get a copy of the slides? Yeah, we don't send out the slides, but what we do send out is a video of the event. And that just means that you're able to then see it with me and Danny talking and get the full context of it. Here's a question potentially for you, Danny. I'll give my input on it too, but can Cin7 be used for the food and beverage industry, or is it specifically suited to wholesalers and the retail environment? So are there any features that food and beverage people could benefit from?
Yeah, I mean, food and beverage is definitely one of the industries I battled really hard on in the early days, and it's really just taken off just recently. So, for example, we do bill of materials. That's sort of easy, but you can change. There's a standard, but you can change the actuals, and we got rid of this sort of arbitrary wastage thing that people had to sort of put in. And I guess the other thing that we've done a lot with food and beverage, and we've released this thing called batch FIFO as well. So I know you've got to keep everything as batches to make sure it's traceable. But we also know that it's very time consuming to select batches all the time, especially when you sometimes don't have to. There may only be one batch in the system, or if it is, you selected FIFO. So we're constantly just trying to make this area better and better. I mean, I give you sort of an example. I was dealing with a UK customer that makes chocolate. Just the other night, he had quite a funky workflow, and it took us ages to find a solution, but we did nail it down. He wanted to figure out how many finished product you can make from a raw materials, and we thought that's usually not the way you do it. You usually put how many finished product, we'll give you the raw materials, but he wanted reverse calculations, and we're happy we're able to provide that to him. So yeah, I guess we spend a lot of time in food and beverage and try and cater for the various nuances of that industry, plus some of the customers that we get.
Good. Yeah, so another quick question for you, Danny, here that I think goes into the multi-company stuff. So can Cin7 support multiple sets of books? Sub-client is not a VAT registered and main client is having to do a set of books to show they're not VAT registered transactions. So how can multi-company work if you're managing 2 separate legal entities?
Yeah, I mean, we've agonized this over a lot as well, and really the entities themselves are really separate companies. I mean, that's sort of what it is. So you actually have separate Xeros, separate Cin7s, and we're just because sometimes the currencies are different, the products are different, there's so many reasons why the companies are different that they have to have separate Xeros, separate Cin7s. And what we do is we synchronize the things that make it, all the hard work, we synchronize across, for example, the product catalogs, which we are going to do, keeping track of one stock, so one entity has visibly on stock on the other entity, and the transacting of the entity. So they are separate, and what we try and do is automate the transactions that happen between the companies, so you're not having to do all this sort of manual work. So that's how we deal with. So they are separate books, and they are separate. We just automate all the manual stuff in the middle. And we do have partners that can consolidate the reports for you and sort of across companies, but we don't quite have that functionality. But we do have sort of other sort of add-on sort of report partners that can sort of merge certain report views that you want.
And we actually do some work with Power BI, where we could do multi-company reporting for anything extra like that.
Yeah.
I guess a question that I've actually got for you, Danny, off the top of mind is, what do you think is one of the most like underutilized features or set of features in Cin7?
Oh, I think that this is the thing that the hardest thing for Cin7 is we actually got a lot of functionality, and I feel a little bit bad because I'm not a very good trainer, and I've had to do that. So I'll give you the broad view. The broad view is I probably know about 80% of what Cin7 does, maybe a little bit less now, 70% of what Cin7 does. And then you got an onboarder, a usual person that is staff probably only knows 40% or 30%. And then our customers probably only know about 20 or 25%. So you can imagine there is a lot that Cin7 offers that not many customers know about. So yeah, but if I was to choose the one thing, the smart buy is pretty cool. Not a lot of customers know about that. There's other things like add-on bombs, which customers don't know about that either. So I guess it depends on your industry. I'll give you another example. Is more about the furniture industries that they didn't know you can upload custom images for, so let's say you're quoting on something that's a bit complicated and you want to upload an image to show the customer what it could look like. We have a facility you can do that, and then that'll show in the quote. But there's only 2 customers in all of Cin7 that know that exist. And I haven't told anyone else that I did it 3 years ago. So yeah, there's a lot, and it's something I'm keen to address, to do more training to partners like yourself, guys, so you can empower the customers. So that's definitely a focus on Cin7. How do we train our partners and our support people with all the things that they can help our customers with?
Yeah, great. Perfect. So thank you so much for your time, Danny, and thank you very much everyone for attending. If you do want to join Cin7, you can do so as a referral partner. And then we work alongside them as an implementation partner, so they'll help you assess whether a client's suitable, and then we can help you set that client up and move everything across and give them training, whatever that support may be. So following this, we'll be sending out an email with a link to that, so you can speak to, I believe it'll be Arga on the Cin7 side, about joining up as a referral partner. And then we can also talk more about how we can help you do those client transitions. Good. This is a good quick question, I think, at the end, Danny, to end on. What sort of size of company do you see as being maybe too small to use something like Cin7? Is there a lower barrier of entry? Or
Well, usually you really only need a system when you probably start to have 5 or more users, I think. It's just when you got specialization and people need to talk to each other. Usually when you start out, 1 or 2 people know each other and they sort of know how each other work, and the business is not big enough. But I would categorize it with at least 5 or more users that they need to use a system before I would look at actually implementing a system, because obviously there's always overhead when you implement a system. It requires work. So yeah, that's about the number I would give.
I think as well, my advice to any smaller companies that are looking to implement systems is don't try to build processes that are so high touch, you'll begin to resent them and not follow them. I think a lot of people, when they move to systems, they try to over add detail, maybe adding batch numbers to something that you don't need to necessarily add a batch number to. And then you've had this second step of processing. I think it's important to kind of strip back what are the essentials that you need to report on, what do you need to automate, and don't overburden yourself by, say, adding in barcode scanning when you're not currently doing it. I think definitely try to phase the change as much as possible for smaller companies. Brilliant. Okay, well, I think that's the last of the questions. There are a few more coming in, but I will come back to you guys on email as well. So Danny, thank you again for your time. Is there any final word you want to leave us with, or just a simple goodbye?
Yeah, no, I was excited to do this. Yeah, we should do more of them. So yeah, we'll keep in touch
Yeah, if there's any particular
yeah.
topics you guys would like to hear us talk about specifically around the world of connected inventory and Cin7, maybe a particular industry or type of client you'd like us to talk about, or set of features or particular accounting problems that you're facing as well, we'd love to hear about that. So respond to the email and I'll definitely review those with a keen eye. So thank you all for your time. I hope you have a great Tuesday and you will receive an email from us within the next 24 hours with all the links and access to the video. Great
Great.
stuff.
Thanks,
Thank
Guy,
you
and
all.
thanks for the attendees.
Great. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.